here. Hi. So I'm another one of those people who doesn't believe in New Year's resolutions. I kind of believe that every day is a good day to resolve to make your life better. And so this is the day about 5 years ago that I resolved to never again give my number to a guy I met in a bar. So my friend Anne-Marie and I were going dancing at Phoenix Landing in Cambridge, and on Saturday nights they do a lot of 80s music, and we loved it. We'd get to Vogue, and we'd get to sing along to Journey, and it was just a blast. But this particular Saturday night, Anne-Marie was late and I was early, which means I had to spend like 35, 40 minutes sitting at the bar alone on a Saturday night. And this is not fun. So I was really nervous, and I'm trying to drink my drink really slowly, and I catch the eye of this guy across the bar. And he nods, and I nod, and he kind of does this, "Come sit over here," and I'm like, "No, you come sit over here, and come sit over here, no, come sit over here," and he comes and sits next to me, which was pretty cool, and he says, "Hi, my name is Paul, with a P," and I'm thinking, how the hell else are you going to spell Paul? But he has this nice little lilting Irish accent, and he's really cute, and we talk for a little while, and he says, "Well, Karen, I promised my friend who owns the pub that I'd help him at the door at 10, but would you mind if I took your number before then?" So I think about it, and I say, "Okay, I'll give you my number," and I give him my number, and he says, "Karen, how do you spell that?" And I say, "With a K?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay." And then he says, "What's your last name, Karen?" And I think, does Paul with a P have a lot of Karens with a K in his phone? I don't know, but I tell him my last name, and then he says, "Would you mind if I took your picture?" And this is where I drew the line. I was like, "No, Paul, if you don't remember what I look like in the morning, do me a favor and don't call." Well, Anne-Marie finally showed up, and we're dancing on the dance floor, and I see Paul making his way across the room, and I'm like, act cool, but it's taking him a really long time to get to us, so I sort of turn around, and right before he made it to us, he started dancing with some blonde girl right behind me. So I'm like, okay, well, so much for Paul with a P, and Anne-Marie and I kind of move to another part of the dance floor, and we have a good night, but when we're leaving, we totally see Paul with a P standing at the door making out with that blonde chick. So that's fine. I figure that's the end of it, except when I get home, I'm woken up at 4:30 in the morning with a text that says, "It was very nice to meet you. I'm home now. Would you like to go to the movies with me tomorrow?" And I'm thinking, ew, gross, like that bar closed at 2, which means Paul with a P went home with that blonde chick, and now he's texting me to go to the movies. But for some reason, I just text back, "No thanks," and we end up in this little texting thing, and one day he calls, and I pick up the phone, and he says, "Karen, I'm so glad I caught you. My boss has given me a bonus for doing a good job, and he has given me a trip to New York City, so I was wondering if you'd like to go to New York City with me this weekend." And I was like, "Paul, I don't think that's appropriate." And he says, "Well, why not?" And I said, "Well, I don't really know you." And he says, "Well, of course you do." And I'm like, "Paul, all we have shared is a 10-minute conversation." And he says, "What are you talking about? We danced, we talked, we kissed, and we cuddled." And I'm like, "Oh, Paul, I'm so sorry. You have me confused with someone else." And he says, "No, I don't. I know exactly who you are. You're the blonde girl." So it turns out Paul doesn't remember meeting 2 different women that night. He thinks the entire time he was dancing and talking and kissing and cuddling with the blonde girl that he was with the woman that he met at the bar. And so it takes me the rest of that conversation and 2 more phone conversations to prove to him that no, I am not the blonde girl. And that's when I resolved to never again give my number to a guy at the bar. But I kind of felt bad for poor Paul because he really seemed to like that blonde chick. And all the time that they danced and they talked and they kissed and they cuddled, he never got her number. And unless she was Karen with a K, he never got her name either.